No boring. No boring allowed. The only thing that's allowed to be boring is the actual day-to-day operations of the business, because we have so many clients that constantly hit us up and they're in some sort of chaos, or they're running 1,000,000 miles an hour in different directions and they never actually make any progress, and they have to consult them on your business is supposed to be boring. Leads, sales, hiring, growth, predictability. You know, if your business is not boring, it's a problem. Exactly. That's where we want it to be boring, but not in the visuals. The visuals, we don't need it boring.
Exactly.
That's right.
Fantastic.
Right. Exciting, right. Boring, Mihai says. Exciting.
Well, yeah, excitingly boring, right? Because the reality is, if I'm growing every single month and I'm serving more people and they like the results and I'm making more money, that's exciting. Chaos is not exciting. Chaos and entrepreneurs love to cause chaos. When everything's going boring, they're like, oh, let me throw this into the mix. It's almost like they want the chaos. Chaos is not welcome. Businesses should be boring.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's
all right. Should we wait for anybody else, or should we get rolling?
We can get rolling and they can catch up on the recording, or I'll send them a special note.
Cool. Well, let's kick it off. So today what we're talking about is launching an optimization, right? So boom, we've pressed go on our ads. We're all excited. We're wringing our hands, hoping that the cash register starts ringing. And we're like, okay, what do we do next? Most of what we've talked about up until this point, I would say, is more in the science department, right? There's templates, there's processes, all that stuff. Once you start getting into the optimization and scaling stuff, it is equally science and art, right? You actually have to start to get a feel for reading data, making judgment calls, testing stuff, scaling stuff, turning stuff off. So you kind of got to start to take a step back and be okay with the fact that a lot of this is feel, right? So if you know at least where you're starting from and you've got some basic processes to roll with, a lot of this is reading that data and then making a gut decision on what's next. And as long as you are consistently testing, which we've talked about, and your frameworks are set up appropriately for whatever channel you're on, then you're 95% ahead of everybody else in the marketplace, right? But once you start getting into optimization and scaling, it's a little bit of educated guessing. You're going to make some mistakes. You can't worry about it. And what we're going to try and do is make this a little bit more interactive to get your mind working today from that perspective, because optimization, like I said, is a little bit art, a little bit science. Anything you want to add to that?
No, not at all. Let's just get stuck in straight away.
All right, let's do it.
To the presentation that I have ready. Let me go back to Zoom here, share the screen. Let me know when you can see it, everybody.
It's there.
It's there. Cool. Let me just go back to this as well. Stop my video just for a second. Right. So yes, welcome to today's presentation. As Aaron just pointed out, we're going to make this a little bit more interactive, because otherwise PowerPoints after PowerPoints, how many of you have gone through those? And we've had a lot of PowerPoints lately. So I'm going to talk very briefly about mindset, and then we're going to specifically focus on Facebook ads. We're going to have a look on Thursday's session around YouTube and possibly, and certainly scaling. Today, we're just going to focus on literally when you've got those campaigns launched around Facebook ads, what are the sort of decisions that you have to go through? And we'll talk about testing as well. So with that said, without further ado, mindset. Now, this is so important. It takes a lot of patience to get the campaigns working, and it can be very frustrating. It does take time. You've got to be patient about everything. You've got to have the willpower to push it through, and you do have to be dedicated to the process. And I promise you I absolutely humbly swear and promise to you that if you take this into account and take this seriously, you will get the results. Because guess what? Although Aaron pointed out that art is part of it, helping you through every step of the way is going to be the data that you are going to see in the relevant ads management platform. So that's obviously, and today we're going to be looking at Facebook ads, and we'll have a look at YouTube and Google search on Thursday. So just remember that it does take some time to get the initial traction going. And of course, you're going to do it with the minimal budget possible. Okay. So with that said, just a reminder of the process, everybody. Remember what we did before is that we had what's known as the pre-launch process. That's where you're creating and preparing your audiences, all your ad copy, your creative, your videos. All of that stuff has to be prepared before. There's just no point launching any ads, all your tracking, making sure your funnel is working, all of that good stuff. We normally manage to do that within 30 days. If you're in a smaller business, and you can do that probably within a few days. But in our setting, we normally set aside 30 days for us to prepare all the assets that we need. And now we're ready to sort of hit the button and hit go. Remember, it's 30 days roughly that we normally, you should start seeing results actually a little bit quicker than that. But you have to consider that phase 2 is just your launch and initial testing phase within the context of Facebook. Now, we'll be covering a little bit more detail around optimizing and particularly scaling on our next session as well. And if we have time today, we're going to, or Aaron's going to go through a technique which is different to what we do most of the time. But if you're looking for very fast results and you've got the budget to do it, then there's something called the day trading technique, which Aaron developed when he was building essentially his e-commerce business, which was doing a cool $8 million a year. So that was all done through that particular technique. So with that said,
excuse me,
yes?
you shorted me. I was doing $10 million a year.
Oh, 10 million. I'm sorry. Just what's 2 million these days, Aaron?
You hitting me with inflation or what?
Exactly. Exactly. By the way, you owe us a Bruce Lee photo, I believe, by the end of today's session.
Yeah, you did remind me of it. All right, I'll pull it up.
Okay, good stuff. All right, so you can, folks, remember from phase 1, your campaign checklist. This is based on a $200 a day budget. Now, I know some of you have been writing in the actual Slack channel, and not everybody, we understand that not everybody has $200 a day, and that's fine. It's not a crime. Everyone has to start with somewhere, and there are specific nuances around it, but I would recommend that you do start with lead ads. So this setup that we've got here is not exactly the same, but the audiences are certainly the same. I mean, you're going to be essentially setting up your budgets around your lookalikes. Remember those lookalike audiences of your buyers, your leads, your website visitors, your engagers, if you have them. Obviously, if you're absolutely starting from a business from scratch and you've got a brand new Facebook page, then you're not going to have any Facebook engaged. So, but if you do have leads, if you do have buyers, if you do have people who have been hitting your website every month, then there's certainly valid audiences to use. Remember, in campaign 2, that is if you're absolutely not, you haven't done any advertising at all. Remember about all the different interests that Facebook offers to you. You've got experts, influencers as one category. You've got websites, different interests, which can be overlaid with small business owners. You've got fields of study. You've got a ton of different targeting options, just as you do now with TikTok, which is getting bigger and bigger. Then you've got your retargeting campaigns. And then finally, remember, if we go all the way back to pretty much at the beginning, I think it was session number 4, where we were talking about content mapping. Okay. Remember here, the goal is to get your brand and your knowledge and your positioning out in the marketplace with video view campaigns. Okay, so let's assume you set this up. What we're going to be doing is I'm just going to tell you basically 3 simple rules. It's not complicated, folks. It's actually very, very simple. The question is putting it into practice, which is something just like when we all start out. When we were kids, we were riding a bike, we fell over. That's what's going to happen here. So remember, you will fail, but you will succeed as well because you got data to help you along the way. So with that said, here are your 3 rules when it comes to almost every advertising platform without exception. You're going to be looking at the ad level. So I'll talk about this again on Thursday for Google and YouTube. But you're going to be looking always at the ad level. Remember, folks, you've got one campaign can have many ad sets in the case of Facebook, and each ad set can have multiple ads. And as we mentioned in our previous session and in the previous slide, you will be basically putting 3 ads 1, 2, and 3 in each of those ad sets. Okay, so I'll go back to this slide here. Those 3 ads that I'm putting here are exactly the same ads. Ad 1, which will have headline number 1, it will have copy number 1, it will have like the standard call to action, and it will have your image number 1. And then ad number 2 will have exactly the same. The only difference will be image number 2. And you're always going to start with the images, folks. Okay. Now, I remember, if you recall, we told you to get 10 images, memes, and that sort of thing prepared. So go back to the previous session if you don't remember. The second rule is that you're going to kill, what I mean by kill is you're going to pause any campaign with an audience stroke ad combination that are 1.5 your KPI. So let's say your goal is to get leads. All right, your goal is just to get a lead, an opt-in on the front end, and let's say your KPI is $10. You should not really be spending more than $15 on an individual ad, because if you do, then, and you haven't gotten a lead, I should say, in this particular example, then you need to switch that ad off. Okay, so we'll see an example in a minute. Now, look at the last also 3, 7, and 14 days of data to identify a possible trend. I'm going to see an example in a minute, but just what you'll see is that your results will vary over a 3 to 7 day window, but what you're looking for is stability, because with stability, generally speaking, by the time, remember that Facebook has served you all the impressions that you need, essentially what you're going to be ending up with is something which allows you to scale. So, and remember just to look for possible trends that will help you identify winners as quickly as you possibly can. So it's very, very simple, folks. Remember, if your lead cost, if your objective to get a lead is $10, don't spend more than $15 on an individual ad stroke audience combination. Now, on the actual days, 3 and 7, 14 day windows, let's have a look at an example here. Now, this is an interesting case, and this is where Aaron's mention of art comes in, okay? Because the question is, we've given you some models. If you remember back to the session when we gave you some models, we told you, like, for example, the outbound CTRs on Facebook ads should be about 1%. Ironically, it is the same in YouTube. In fact, in Facebook, we try to shoot for 1.5% in as much as we possibly can. So remember, your Facebook ad screen looks like there's your campaign level, there's your ad set level, and these are your ads. Here are 3 ads in one specific ad set that I've pulled up. And you can see that I've got my columns set up appropriately. So I've got my CPM, I've got my CTR all, I've got my number of outbound clicks, how much my outbound clicks are costing me, and how much my outbound CTR. Don't forget landing page views. And then you've got the cost per result. Here we're looking at 14 days, 7 days, and the last 3 days. And this is literally pulled from today. So you can see in this particular campaign on one given ad set, you've got 3 sets of campaigns here. Now look at columns 1 and 2 in each 3 cases. You're going to notice that let's say this for this particular ad account, it's around $60 to $70 is what we're looking at historically to get a purchase. So we're looking to acquire a paying customer for $70. Let's just put that number down for now, $70. So let me just ask you, if you look at all of these results, we got this ad number 63 here, and you can see just how many ads are being tested. You can notice the post ID, meaning that we're reusing the same ad that we have from the ads container, which we talked about, I think, 3 sessions ago. But you can see different cost per result here, and you can see different CTRs. Now, if you look at this, the CTRs on this one over the different time frames is almost better. There's ad number 133 is doing much better for us, right? Which is 1.4% here over the last 14 days. It's consistently getting a good click-through rate, over 1% here. This one's the second one, let's go from the top again. Ad 134 is getting a horrible CTR rate. It's 0.33%. And this one is 0.27. So it's consistently bad. Okay, it's consistently low, the CTR. Now let's look at the first one, ad number 63. You got 0.55 over the last 14 days, 0.56 over the last 7 days, and 0.56 over the last. So that all those numbers are being consistent in terms of how much interest we are getting the ad into this funnel. Okay, but look at the result of each one is very different. You've got $70 here, you got even 64 over the last 7 days, and here it's even gone down in the last 3 days. So you can see very quickly that this, if anything, is improving all the time. Okay, this ad number 63. So in this situation, and I'm going to open a question and put in the chat here. Can you, if you tell me which ad would you keep on, and which one would you switch off, or which ones would you switch off? Let's see if we've got a little bit of a quiz going on here. Let's get you engaged, folks. Which one would you keep on, and which one would you keep off? Just put ad 63 or ad 134. Help me out and put something in the chat. I'm watching the chat and everyone's looking.
No.
134.
While we're getting our answers, Andy, and we really want to encourage this today, we're getting questions, because questions are super important to take and understand the whys, right? So one of the questions here was 3 ads in one ad set. Isn't that frowned upon, since Facebook's AI will favor one more than others and not give it a fair shot? It can. You have to watch. I mean, in this particular case, we're seeing favoritism across the board in all of them from ad spend. In this particular case, all of these ads have been tested before and proven to work with different audiences. So at this point where we're launching multiple proven creatives to new audiences to test them out. And they don't always work the way that we would expect them to. You know, if they worked the way that we expected them to, we would just have the one with the lowest CPA everywhere. But depending on the audience that we target, sometimes the other ones outperform. So hopefully that answers the question. The other question we're seeing here is, what was the target CPA again? In this particular account, I'm thrilled below 60. I'll accept below 70, and I'm a little bit intolerant up to 80. So that's my target CPA with regards to this account. So we're starting to see answers come in from people, Andy, in the in the chat box there. So I don't know if you're reading through them or not.
Yeah, I'm looking at them now, just pulling it up right now. Okay. So yeah, the answer for us is keep on ad number 63 and switch off 133 and 134. Exactly that. Because at this juncture, this one is improving, even though the CTR is lower. In other words, my result, my ROAS or my CPA in this particular case is way more important than my CTR. And this is where the art comes in, because you're going to have situations where you get really crazy low CTRs because you're targeting a very specific audience, but the CPAs are just so good. Why? We'll see again in a moment.
Yeah. And in this particular one, you can't see the creatives expanded. You can only see thumbnails of them. But in the first ad, we're comparing softwares side by side. And something about the color scheme and the background on the top one, 63, consistently is outperforming the second one, which is weird. It's something to remember, right? Something as simple as color scheme can affect your outcome. And then the third one is actually just a headline with a big 93% off. So you can see that that big 93% off is getting a higher link click-through rate than everybody else, but it's because people are just clicking it for the sale. You know, oh, I can get something 93% off without actually probably reading enough about what they're actually clicking. So even though it has a higher link click-through rate, it doesn't get us the CPA that we want. And we're going to talk a little bit about how the art and science often relates to timing, right? So when we're first launching something, it's traditionally more important to look at the first metric that you can get your head wrapped around, which is your CTRs and your cost per clicks. But as something becomes more established, it's more important to shift your focus into your core event, which might be cost per purchase, like it is in this particular case, cost per appointment scheduled, cost per lead, right? So timing often plays a big role in the decisions that you make. Would I like to get this outbound click-through rate up? Yes, I would, because that would drive my cost per outbound click down.
That's right.
And maybe take it more from the 5 and change to closer to where I want it to be, which is the 2 and change. So what I have to do is I have to look at the creative and I have to ask myself, is there something about the third element, the third ad? Is there an element in that third ad that I could maybe steal and transpose onto the first ad, and maybe just looking at it from this perspective and letting the art come into my mind? I'm thinking, well, maybe what I could do is somehow find a way to sneak that big, bold 93% off icon onto the top ad so that I'm combining potentially the two elements that are playing well together.
Exactly.
That's where your brain has to move a little bit from science, because you're looking at the numbers and you're saying, well, the numbers tell me that on the cost per result, I should stay on ad 63. If I'm not looking at that and I'm looking at the outbound click-through rate, it's telling me I should go to ad 133, but then I'm going to spend more for the same outcome. So I don't want that. So then how do I combine the best performing element of ad 133 into ad 1? So maybe I can combine the best things together and maybe drive that cost per outbound click down, the outbound click-through rate up, and ultimately impact my cost per purchase. Right? I tell my media buyers, this is where you're starting to look inside the matrix and look at what the data is telling you, and then start to ask questions, around the data. Right? If I look at ad 2, I go, okay, why is essentially the same ad not performing as well in number 2 as number 1. Well, it's all about color scheme. Okay, well, if color scheme is having that much of an effect on what I'm doing, what should I do next? Right? And this is that these questions are kind of challenging when we're at this point in your journey. But I'm asking you guys this question, and I'm just curious to hear your answers. If it's the same ad in 63 as it is in 134, but the color scheme test in 134 is costing me almost twice as much, what suggestion does that give me to potentially go back and test on ad 63 or again on ad 134? I'm hoping I'm asking the question in the right way that will lead you to where I'm going. Does anybody have any thoughts around that?
So Lauren's got an answer.
Beautiful. So Lauren hit it right on the head, right? Test other color schemes creatives to add 63, or test other style creatives using the peach and blue combo. That's bang on the right answer,
Exactly.
right? Robert saying contrasting colors, it creates dissonance that someone feels like they have to resolve, right? Malcolm says content from ad 134 and color style from 63. That makes sense, except they're the same content in ad 63 and 134, right? So right now I'm going, okay, I'm either going to test a couple other color schemes off of ad 63. And because it's more pinky and light blue, I'm probably going to stay more in the female driven color scheme and test a couple more color schemes. And if I test any new creatives moving forward, the first color scheme I'm going to test is the peach and blue, because it's been proven multiple times that that's what's attracting people in the most. So this is where you have to take the math, you have to analyze the math, and then you have to say, okay, what's the math telling me about the creative or the audience? But in this particular case, we're talking about the creative. And how do I now iterate off of what I've learned for my next test? Because every time you learn something and then you implement it on your next test, theoretically, it only gets better and better and better and drives your cost per acquisition down. And I'll give you an example of my weight loss company that I had. I tested, like I teach in here, I tested 10 images. I got the images that I wanted. There was actually 1 out of the 10 that really blew everything else apart. And then the next thing I tested were headlines on the best performing image. And I tested 10 different headlines on the image. And I tested a lot of things that you would traditionally test on a weight loss ad. Tested things like, reduce your body fat or improve your BMI or get in the best shape of your life without, working out 5 days a week. And I tested all of those kind of things. But do you know what the single best headline was that worked for me on the image? It was just something that said, "I'm waiting for you." Weird. I don't know why I came up with it. She was just sitting on a Bozu ball staring into the camera, and "I'm waiting for you" was by far the best performing headline that I had. So I started lacing "I'm waiting for you" into almost everything I was doing, and it improved all the results across everything: emails, website, everything, because there was something about her saying that resonated with people. Right? Natalie is saying, how often do you test out brand new ad copy? Well, for us, we test the images first, then the headlines on the images. Then once we've dialed that in, we test, typically 1 to 2 new copy angles or complete rewrites per week inside of 10% of our overall budget.
Right.
So we try to look back at what's working, and we'll either try to iterate off of something that's similar but slightly different because we've got proof of concept there, or we'll go completely the other way. We try not to do like in between tests. We try to iterate like we're talking about here with these images off into something slightly different, but has proof of concept, or go completely to the opposite side and do something wildly different to see if we can completely obliterate our test. So what Lauren is saying here is this is the scaling CBO world versus the ABO sandbox 10% setup budget, right? I'm not sure if I understand your question in particular, but right now, what we're really talking about is launching and testing new campaigns. We're showing you an experience one right now just to show you a screenshot. But what we're going to actually be talking about next week is how to scale, how much to spend on scaling, how to set up your scaling processes, frequency, operations, all the things that come within scaling. So what we're really talking about right now is your launches or your ongoing testing that you're either doing with your initial full budget or the 10% of your budget that you've set aside for new testing. Hopefully that answers that question. So I've just made it through all of the questions up to this point, Andy. So I'm not sure if you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is where it gets even more interactive. So I've got 3 different interactive case studies here. So we're going to be pulling up our models and we're looking at some real data, folks. So this was just the scratching the surface. I'm going to show you some new stats now. Let's go there. Okay. So again, what would you do in this example? You can see that I've got every single thing right from the CPM. And also, by the way, actually, before I go there, I want to ask and answer a question from Natalie. You said, is that bad practice put 3 in or what? Well, I'll quickly sorry about this.
I already answered that. It's okay. You can go on.
Oh,
I already answered that.
The only thing I wanted to say is that there's enough impressions before Facebook, Facebook is not going to optimize or improve because the number of impressions stops at 8,000. So we're getting pretty close, even though there are 3 ads in there. That's all I was going to mention. But back to this case, here is the full funnel. This is real. This is actual real data. You can see it's literally from a Monday through to a Sunday last week. So, folks, open question. What would you do here? Or what things can you see that need to change?
Yeah, and I'll preface this a little bit more, right?
Okay.
With our media buyers, and we've really focused on this a lot in this cohort, we have 2 things that they're looking at. We have the entire flow of traffic from CPM all the way to every aspect of their funnel, which we summarize on a weekly basis. And that's what this is. So you've got this, which is your high level look at the entire campaign from front to back. And then you've got your dashboards in TikTok or Facebook and Instagram or YouTube, where you're seeing independent metrics within the traffic side of the campaign. I really want you to encourage you to start to approach your media buying from this perspective of having both. Because when you're looking at both, you're looking at the immediate dashboard data, but you're also taking a step backwards and you're looking at the health of the campaign from top to bottom through the offer and profitability angle. The dashboard, that's media buyer mentality. This whole holistic view is thinking about it as the business owner. If you can start to think about it as the business owner, you take yourself from intermediate buyer to phenomenal media buyer. So you can see in this example, we've put our goal metrics all the way down the left, and then we've put our current last week metrics all the way down the right. So if I'm going to come into this account on a Monday, the first thing I'm going to ask myself is, what's my big rock priority for the week? As a whole, looking at it holistically, what's my big rock? Where can I move the needle the most on this campaign. I'm going to zone in on it. I'm going to make my decision. I'm going to create my testing and my plan to accomplish that. I'm going to put that into action. And then I'm going to move my head over to the actual ads account and start to optimize what's inside of the ads account. So when you look at the goal metrics on the left-hand side, and then you look at the date range on the right-hand side, if you could choose one thing out of all of the metrics on the right-hand side to be the biggest opportunity for this holistic view, what would it be?
Yeah.
So I love Uzair's answer because it's actually the right answer, which is I would scale it. I would scale it. Okay. Correct. Right. Cost per book call is very good. So you get checkbox for that answer. But beyond scaling it, what would you say is the biggest priority that we can look at in our current metrics? Lauren says outbound CTR.
Any more? Got Nicholas.
Nicholas said outbound CTR. Chris Turley said lead conversion. Mihai said cost per lead. Robert Lee said lead conversion. Uzair said lead conversion. So being that the general consensus answer here is lead conversion, let's go through this logically, right? So if we look at CPM, we're half our goal CPM. Fantastic. What does that impact? Our cost per click brought us down to 1.32, right? Our click-through rate is 1.25. Some of you mentioned that. So let's circle back around on that in a second. Our cost per outbound click goal is 5. We're at 268. Our outbound CTR is 0.62%. We've got landing page views. Cost per lead goal was 20. We're at 1283. Our goal lead conversion there was 25%. We're at 15.38. Our video view rate, which in this particular case is how many people actually click on the VSL and start to watch it, is 34%. Our average watch time goal was 60%, and we're at 48%. Our cost per initiating the strategy session goal is 80. We're at 33.96. Our initiate application percentage goal is 10%. We're having 38% of people initiate the application. There should really be, if you were doing this right, you should have a cost per application goal metric in there. For whatever reason, this media buyer did not put it in, but I am assuming that that's probably exponentially higher than 41.95 because of the way the numbers are cascading down. Application conversion, 31%. That should have a metric in there as well. You should have a goal metric in that. Booked calls, cost per book call, 200, 124, right? And when I look at this, there are things that I would color code red, right? Because they're not hitting our goal. The things that are red are CTR, 3% versus 1.25. Outbound CTR, 1.5 versus 0.62. Lead conversion, 15% versus 25%. Video view rate would be red at 34%. Average watch time would be red at 48%, right? And then everything else after that looks like it's probably beating the goal metric. So now we've got 5 or 6 red items. What most media buyers would do is they would zone in on, ooh, my outbound CTR should be 1.5%. It's only at 0.62. It must be the creatives or the copy or the audiences. I'm going to go to work on that. I understand why that would be your focus. But in my opinion, the answer is everybody who put lead conversion, because the costs that we're getting all the way up to that point are absolutely murdering our goal costs that we're looking for. And if we can do a little bit of testing, a little bit of CRO on that landing page, and we can get that up to 25% with all the metrics that we've got above that, oh my goodness, this thing goes now from $124 per book call to maybe $100 per book call. Are we going to get the same results out of trying to move 0.62 to 1.5 or 1.25 to 3? Probably not. So in this particular case, when we're looking at it, we have to ask ourselves, where's the biggest opportunity to move the needle that's going to directly impact revenue the most?
Yeah.
I'm zoning in on the lead conversion because there's something about that page that's not quite getting what I want. And I got 10 points to move that thing, and everything else below would be dramatically impacted. Does that make sense to everybody that is looking at this now?
Yeah, essentially you're looking for the hinge that will swing the biggest door.
Yeah. And you could have somebody come in, like this is the media buying world. They come in and they look at your account and they go, oh, their CTRs suck. Right.
Exactly.
The reality is we're getting $2.68 outbound clicks on a $16 and 55% CPM and $12 leads. Like, honestly, who cares about that part right now? Right? When we get leads in the door, look at how high they're converting into book calls. And we're 33%, if not more, lower than where we should be on our lead conversion number. So let's go test 5 different headlines on the landing page and let's see what can move the needle to 25, because that's going to easily drop our cost per book call versus 25 different creative variations in the top, right? It's much easier for me to write 5 headlines and swing a much bigger door with that hinge.
Exactly.
Right. So, Lauren is saying, yes, and having control of the assets after the click is huge. And if you can lift it quickly, awesome. And typically you can lift that number, cost per lead, much easier than having to do copy variations, image variations, video variations, audience variations on the CTRs. Now, obviously, if all of the numbers were crap, below lead, we might be having a different conversation, right? Yeah. But they're awesome below. Our cost per click is awesome. It's just the hinge that makes the most sense on this is the opt-in rate. That's where I'd be zoning in on first. So now we have our big, audacious goal for the week, knowing if we fix that one thing, it doesn't even matter what we do with the traffic, because this client's going to scream from the rooftops how awesome you are. In fact, this client is already screaming from the rooftops how awesome we are. But, if we get them to 100, outstanding. Andy, anything you would add?
No, not at all. I do have one more slide just to extend it more into the ad side of it as well. Sure. But yeah, this was just mainly, folks, for all of you to have an exercise on making sure you put your energy, because we've all got limited number of hours in the day, is figuring out on Monday morning where you're going to put your focus. Where are you going to put the energy into the point, your optimization point? And in this case, it's the funnel. That's just to illustrate the diagnosis and the process that you need to go through when it comes to optimization during those first 30 days. Okay. Right. So now let's have a look at the same client. So I've got a question here. Now, this particular client remarkably has been using, before they came to us and wanted to scale, they're already doing 150, 200,000 a month. They're now at just over $1 million a month. And they had been running custom conversions. So we don't have our standard events. We've tested it. It's still not working as well as it is with the custom conversions, because in this particular account, it's been running for 3 years. So there's a lot of data on the custom conversions, which Facebook understands. This claim came to us because they just were not able to scale, which is a subject of conversation on Thursday and next week. So what would you do in this one given the previous stat that we've seen here and the rules I've given you, remember the cost per lead is $20. Okay, that's our target. Now, what would you do here? You've got 3 ads that are running right now. There are 2 that are switched off at this moment, but just tell me, you can just put number 1, 2, or 3 running from the top. Which one would you leave on or switch off? Question for you. Same as the same questions we had before. And I'll let you 30 seconds to have a look at it. Who's going to go first?
Come on, people, don't mess around.
Come on.
Come on, read the matrix and let's go.
Exactly. Switch off 1. Okay. And the bottom switch 3 is the only one which is near $20. Yeah. Maybe 2. But I'd like to see the other data table first, says Robert. Which data table are you talking about? The previous one? Is that what you're saying, Robert? Yes. Okay, let's go back there. You got it, Robert? We'll take a screenshot, perhaps. There you go. So which one would you switch off? Which one? You can see that ad number 1 has spent 360, 306, 155 here. Maybe 2. Number 3 is the only one which is near $20. Yeah, exactly. I would leave number 3 on. Remember the rule of, I would probably leave number 2 on as well. But number 1 is costing me $60 a lead. So I would certainly switch number 1 off. And I would leave number 2 just for the time being. This is a 7-day window. I would check the 14-day window. I would check the 3-day window, see what's happening on video on ad number 2. Because remember, you're talking a 1.5 KPI. If our KPI is 20, I'm just a smidgen over at $31. So
and that's where you start talking about a little bit art and science, right? Is you have to be able to justify your decisions, right? I'm going to turn off number 1. I'm going to justify that decision because I've spent enough money. Yeah. Sure, we're getting leads, Mr. Client, but it's 3 times over our KPI. I've seen enough. It's going down. I'm looking at number 2 and I'm looking at number 3. Number 3 is right where we want to be, Mr. Client. So we're going to start to scale that. Number 2, we've spent $155. It's more than I want to spend, but I'm going to give it a little more rope to see if it starts to come down closer to where I want to be so that I've got proof on a second asset. But you could also justify turning it off. You could say, you know what? It's not my role. I'm turning it off. It is what it is. You just have to be able to justify your answer, right? Lauren says, give the middle a chance to spend a bit more, then make a decision. I would do the same thing. I would say we've got 2. We got 1 really solid in KPI. We got 1 bordering at 1.5. I'm going to give it a little bit more rope and we're going to kill off the other ones. And as you can see, there was 1 killed off on ad number 4 at a $50 ad spend. Well, why did you kill that off, Mr. Media Buyer? Well, Mr. Client, your outbound click-through rate was 0.37. There's something about that the client, that, you know, the buyer is not interested. The outbound click was maybe more than we wanted to spend, and we just didn't get any leads through at 2.5x ad spend. I'm going to save you some money, and we killed that one off, right? So you have to read it, analyze it, explain it, and justify your decision.
Exactly. Excellent.
But now what's interesting to me, sorry, go back, Andy.
Yeah.
Is I'm looking at this. Now, obviously you guys can only see thumbnails because we're also trying to hide this client's, actual business a little bit. Right. Yeah. So you can see thumbnails, and you can see in the thumbnail in ad 2, there's a human image in there. In ad 4, there's a human image in there. But in ad 2, there's some type of graphical explanation, or sorry, I should say in ad 3, there's some type of graphical explanation in there. So seeing these and seeing the different cost per lead on 2, 3, and the one that shut off in 4, what would potentially be your next creative iteration test? Seeing what you guys see here.
Not an easy one. Well, it is.
It is an easy one. Come on, get on my level. Let's go. Somebody give me an answer. Right. Malcolm says,
Exactly.
I'm going to try some graphics on others. Of course you are.
That's right.
Right? Because we've got two that say a human image is underperforming a graphical image. Right?
Exactly.
So I'm going to start to test out some more graphic heavy stuff than human heavy stuff. I know this guy, he's a good looking man, but since you can't see him, who knows? Maybe he's not a good looking man or a good looking woman, or maybe who knows what's turning off the audience, right? Maybe he's not fit for this audience to be image of him heavy. Maybe this audience just prefers graphics, or maybe they don't like the way he looks. So we've got to read the data and then figure out from the art side what's different about the one that's pulling and start to iterate off of that with our new tests. Does that make sense to everybody? Say yes if that makes sense. Trying to get you guys to think like we
Yes.
think. Okay, good.
Perfect. All right. Case study number 2. Okay,
Let's
so-
put Uzair's up. I'm just joking, Uzair.
There'll be nothing to change on that. We'll just be scaling.
Just scaling, right? So Uzair's in my headspace now. I'm like, we're making money. Can we spend $1 million today? Let's go. I don't want to deal with the small stuff, but you always got to be chipping away and testing, right? So this is another example. Goal metrics are all on the left. Last 7 days data is all on the right. Have a look at this, read the matrix, and prioritize one thing. So you've got your big audacious goal for the week that you think you can work on holistically. And then you potentially go into your ads manager and you start to optimize the ads. So what's the big holistic opportunity in this account this week? Read it. We'll wait. And then I want to see some answers below.
Exactly. TikTok, everybody.
TikTok.
What's your decision? And I get people book calls, cost per call survey is very high, CPA very high. Okay.
This will be an interesting one because
It is.
everybody's going to have differing opinions. And I know right away what I would do, but I'm curious to know everyone's opinion and then justify it. I'm curious to know what you, Andy, we haven't discussed this. I'm curious to know what your opinion is, but I'm pretty sure we're going to go in the same place. Right.
Well, I pulled this one. I went through 20 of these to find this one.
Okay. So it's funny. We've got people coming in late on this call today and they're going to be like, what the hell are we talking about? You guys are going to have to go back and listen to the recording.
Okay.
All right. I'm starting to get some answers. Uzair says, I'm going to go with cost per initiate. Pam says, increase video watch time. Well, I'm checking myself videos. I'd tweak the videos, says Robert Lee. There's no wrong answer. You guys have to give answers and then justify it. Cause you got to imagine I'm the client and we're going to do this at the end in your test
Yeah.
where we're going to give you a case study and say, what would you do and why? Justify this to me. So you might as well get used to giving the right answer or the wrong answer. Cause this is what your business or your employer is going to expect from you.
That's right.
Malcolm says, I'm going to test different audiences because the cost right from the outset pushes through the rest of the metrics. Okay.
Okay.
Robert Lee says, I'd imagine in my mind, if the VSL improved, the initiate call rate will improve. Victoria says, cost per initiate is almost double what the goal metric is. Okay. So many of you are floating around the answer, which is good. Andy, do you want me to give you my answer or do you want to give your answer?
No, you go for it. I already
Okay.
got mine. Let me see if it matches up with mine.
All right. So CPM is 2158. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cost per click is a little bit high, which is weird with such a low CPM, but okay. Click through rate all is awesome.
Yeah.
Cost per outbound click is a little bit high. Seems like this might be a competitive audience considering our CPM and our clicks are still expensive. There, our outbound CTR, I'm going to obviously read that because it's 1 instead of 1.5. I'm going to read my cost per landing page view at 640.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm obviously going down. Opt-in rate is good. Video view rate, I'm going to read. It's a little bit lower. Remember, video view rate for us is how many people actually click on to play the video because this is a VSL strategy session funnel average. Average watch time, 50% to 26%. I'm going to read that.
Yeah.
Cost per initiate, I'm going to read that. Cost per call survey, I'm going to read that. Booked call rate, I'm going to read that. CPA, I'm going to read that. Right? Okay. But I'm looking for the lever that's going to swing the door and impact the most variables in this equation.
Yeah.
And for me, it is extremely obvious. The average watch time on my VSL is 26%, not 50%.
Yeah.
We're getting pretty much all of our cost per lead data bang on right to that point. And then because that hinge is half of where it needs to be, the cascading effect is hurting everything below it. If that was at 50% and all numbers remain the same instead of 26%, then all of a sudden our cost per initiate strategy session goes down to $75, right? Our cost per call survey goes down to, around 170.
Yeah.
Our CPA goes down to 900. See how that one hinge creates the largest impact into everything else that we're looking at. So I'm going to go back to the offer owner or my boss or whoever I'm talking to and say, guys, we got a problem with our average watch rate on our VSL. I'm probably going to pull up Vimeo or Wistia or wherever it's stored. I'm going to look at where people are falling off the most, which is always, you kind of got to ignore the beginning because the beginning, the most people always drop off in the beginning, but there's going to be another element in there where they drop off and it's affecting my average watch time of 50%. And I'm going to start testing new things in that VSL. Maybe it's a more compelling, disruptive hook in the beginning. Maybe, I'm using an example off the top of my head, Andy. We have a guy who he droned on about how he wanted to impact the world for 21 minutes straight before he actually got into the presentation. And we were like, dude,
yeah,
chop that down to 5 minutes and let's go. Cause people are bored listening to you. Right. I'm going to look through that VSL and I'm going to ask myself impartially, where am I getting bored in this thing? Right. And then I'm going to start to script and reshoot new versions to eliminate the part where I'm bored. Right. Nicholas says, yes, got it. Yes, you got it. So a couple of you got it. Right. Does that mean the video is basically not selling the audience? You can say it's not selling them or it's not engaging them. Right? They're not finding the information compelling enough to sit through at least 50% on average of it. So Robert says, in this particular case, would you evaluate 1, the VSL length, 2, improve the script, 3, different presenter. Those are all really great variables that you could look at. I'm going to look at it, put eyes on it myself, and I'm going to evaluate it myself. And I'm going to ask myself, if I had to choose one of these 3, which one do I think is the biggest problem? Right? Is it the presenter? Are they are they monotonous and okay, dude, you can't be the presenter anymore. We need a new presenter, right? Yeah. Is the script boring as hell? Okay, well, I'm going to change up the script. Is the VSL length, and obviously the VSL length is going to impact the average watch time, right? If we've got a 6-minute VSL, we should probably be more in like the 90% average watch time. But if we've got a 4-hour VSL,
Yeah.
then we're probably never going to hit 50%, right? For us, a normal VSL length is, 20 to 30 minutes on average, right?
Yeah.
But you have to be impartial, and it's really, really good to get outside eyes on it too, and say, what about this thing is losing your attention? What could be added, and get some input in, and then start testing one variable at a time until, you get to where you want to go. So Nicholas is saying, so this example is essentially the same as the previous case study where the landing page is not converting the audience. Well, if we look at our opt-in rate, which is actually people hitting the landing page to then giving us an email or a phone number or whatever we're asking, the landing page is converting great. It's converting at 27%, and our opt-in rate goal is 25%. It's not a landing page problem. It's once they opt in to go to watch the VSL, there's a slightly lower amount that I want to see of them actually clicking it. So I might have to do a couple headline tests there to compel them to click it, or maybe put some buttons beside it that says click play, or put it on autoplay, or whatever I want to try to bump that number up on video view rate. But average watch time is the problem, right? Yeah. It's people they're not interested. They're not interested in what we're saying.
Exactly.
I mean, can I just ask a quick one?
Sure.
Cash collected ROAS, you don't have a goal metric for that usually, or is it just missed out on this one?
I think in this case, it was just missed out. A lot of the times we won't put a goal of cash collected versus payment plans ROAS, because we don't know how the client is operating their finance. So we'll just put like a ROAS number, and then we have to go and add it in later once we see
that's right
how they're collecting cash. So in this particular case, he or she in this account probably hasn't said, hey, like, here's what we would expect from a close rate of cash collected purchases. So you're right, though. I would love to have a goal metric in there, because then I could hold the sales team accountable for, how many are you doing full cash versus doing payment plans, right?
Yeah. And the projected ROAS, which you were going at 6x, the actuals are 3.88. So
yeah, because right now, the problem is that with only 50% of people watching the video of what we want, if we could bump that up to 50% instead of 26 and all numbers below held, then we would double our projected ROAS at the bottom, and now we'd be at 7.5, right? So I'm going hard on that first. Everything else, I don't give a crap about right now.
So do you share this sheet with your client or not?
It depends on the media buyer, to be honest. Some media buyers like to give clients full visibility, and other media buyers like to, there's an old saying, Uzair, treat them like mushrooms, right? Put them in the closet and feed them full of crap, right? So it depends on the personality of your client, right? If your client is a very heavy metric driven person, they might want to see this, right? But most clients, they don't care. They just want to know that they're making sales, right? So in this particular case, I'm going to say, Mr. Client, everything looks great in your metrics so far, except for this one. This one's really poor. And if we could double it to where we want it to be, and everything held the same after, we would have 7.5% ROAS. So we're going to send you some new scripts this week, or we need someone else to read this, or we need some testimonials to add into this thing, or whatever you think the variable is, right? Imagine, Mr. Prospect, we're doing 3.88 right now. If we can double this, we could get to 7. I need you to do this right now. Okay, great, right? So we keep them singularly focused on what they need to do, because sometimes when you get like super metric driven clients, they'll say, okay, great, I'll do that. But what about this outbound CTR? But what about this here, right here? But what about, and we're like, no, don't focus on that, right? Go focus on what I told you to do, right? But they'll want to go and pick everything apart when it's not the biggest priority. The biggest priority is this thing, right? So it kind of depends on your client or your boss, whether you want to show them the whole thing or you just want to keep it internal for yourself.
Thank you. Thanks.
Perfect. Next one, folks. All right.
Before anybody looks at this, we were trying to think of how we would approach this with you guys today. We're like, man, how are we going to approach optimization to help you think like we think?
That's right.
And we were like, let's just try it this way and
That's-
see if it lands well with you guys, and you start to pick up what filters we look at. Is this helpful for you guys today, the way that we're doing this?
Good.
Yes,
Great.
absolutely. Love
It
it.
seems like the response is overwhelmingly positive, which is good.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, we always said right at the very beginning, folks, that we wanted to make this as interactive as possible and as less PowerPointy as possible, because you've got to take all that you've learned here and start applying it, you know. So very, very important. Next one. Now I've
Right.
separated the ad part of it in blue and the funnel part in orange.
Yeah, and you didn't do that. The media buyer did that.
No,
But-
I did.
You did it.
I
Okay.
did.
All right.
I did.
I mean, this is not a bad way to do it, right? Have the ad part in blue and the funnel part in orange. I mean, it's nice for the brain to look at them separated out. But now you got to look at the matrix, and you got to give us one first priority place that you're going to look at on this today. Now, this looks to me like, no, I was going to say it's relatively new, but no, it looks actually relatively seasoned. So
Yeah. It is.
Yep. You guys tell me what you think.
And I'm going to pull up my Slack, Aaron, and tell you who it is.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to put it in our Slack. You don't know. This is a mystery. This is a mystery.
Well, I'm gonna read the matrix right now, and then I'm gonna guess who it is.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna make a guess. Is it real estate?
No.
Ah, damn it. Right. Hold on. You didn't put it in for me. Who is it?
I'm putting it in there.
Oh, okay. All right. One of our celebrity clients.
Yeah.
Got it.
We got answers coming in. And this is the last one, folks. The rest is PowerPoint.
Now they don't want to do PowerPoints anymore. They just want to play the Matrix game.
That's right. Yeah, we'll do more Matrix games then.
All right. This one was a relatively easy one. Pretty much everybody got the right answer. So this is one of our celebrity clients. So the great thing about celebrities with lots of social proof and followers and brand awareness, which you guys should all keep in mind because it makes your job easier if you got your clients doing those things, is we've got super low CPMs, super low cost per click all, super low outbound clicks, right? We've got great checkout numbers, initiating checkout. This is a sale up front.
Yeah.
And we've got cost per purchase at $65.04 versus $40. So obviously that's going to go in red. Purchase conversion 7 versus 25. Order bump is great at 57. There's some work in the upsell downsells, but I actually think the reason, Andy, there's no upsell downsells data in here is because we actually pivoted this offer from upsells and downsells in the funnel to actually taking them straight to booking a strategy session for their event. So if I was looking at this not knowing that, I'd say, well, we got a crap ton of problems in here. No one's taking the upsells, no one's taking the downsells. Where do we focus first?
Yeah.
But this is actually going to a strategy session booking page after this. So none of that data is accurate. Well, is even funneling through in upsell, downsell. So everybody hit the right answer, which is purchase conversion. We've got 46% of people adding to cart And what I want to see is 25% of them buying, but there's only 7. So even though our numbers are killer up top, absolutely killer, we got a buying problem. So I'm going to go right to the purchase page and I'm going to pull it up and I'm going to start going through it. What does this look like on desktop? What does this look like on mobile? Are they doing stupid things like making people create an account first or charging shipping? Or, you know, are there things that we could add like a testimonial on the page or a guarantee on the page? What about this is causing friction in the purchase conversion? Because if we can get this purchase conversion up to 25%, then that's going to lower our cost per purchase on this account to like $17, which is sick.
Exactly.
Now, the great thing about this is that this client doesn't care. Know why? Because they're booking appointments off of this funnel for $80. We have a super, super high conversion from the purchase to the booked appointment. So they're self-liquidating a ton of their ad spend through this funnel and building their audience and building their lead list and everything else that comes along with it. And their cost per book call is absurdly low. So they're stoked, but you know, we have to go back and look at that purchase page and we have to say, okay, what are we testing this week to improve that number so that we can impact everything else below it? Let's get to work. Right? Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
Continuous improvement. Absolutely.
That's exactly what it's all about.
And the reality is we still keep testing, even when every one of these numbers lines up and everything's green. We still keep testing because we could do better than our goal metrics. We just prioritize solving the problems, the biggest problem first.
That's right.
Before we circle back around and put a bunch of effort into the things that don't really matter. And then the great thing is, and you guys should all do this as well, is when we find something that's absolutely killer, like, man, this initiate checkout conversion at 465 and at 46.89%. What about that page is absolutely blowing the doors off our goal metric of 35%? Let's set that aside, keep it in a folder, keep a link in it or whatever. Now let me go look at all my other clients with similar offers and compare the 2 pages together and see what elements this page has that theirs doesn't. And let's start testing those elements on their pages so that maybe over time, our new goal metric goes up to 40% because we're leveraging the data from the other clients. It's something that we do internally and you guys should do as well, right? Because you've already done the work to prove it out somewhere else. Why not layer it into everything else that you're doing?
Exactly. Awesome. Well, that one was an easy one. I thought
that was an easy one.
A very easy one. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Any questions so far, folks? And would you like more case studies of this, for example, for Thursday? Just to get the brain moving, get the cells moving. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Because I'm sort of halfway through Thursday's presentation already.
Yeah, we got the same problem there. We're like, how the hell do we teach this? Because this is not an easy topic to cover.
No,
so if this is going to work, then we'll use this.
Yeah, Robert says he'll do them for fun. Just send them over. Robert's going to do them for fun.
Fantastic. All right, folks. Now we
I would
talked
just like to add a quick comment.
Sure.
I think I will, on all of us, on all our behalf, is you guys take everybody away from that interface and not just jump into Facebook ads or Google ads and just start messing around with the numbers or optimizing. You take a step back just by having a simple spreadsheet. And this is so simple and so effective that I can't believe many companies or many marketers teach this. It's amazing. Thank you.
You know what? I appreciate the compliment, Uzair. And the reason why we do it this way, has an interesting backstory. So when I started this agency and I started to hire a team and build out a team, which you're probably doing as well at this juncture, I taught them all the creatives and I taught them all of the processes and I taught them how to review data. But they would come to me when things were out of KPI and say,
They don't know what to do.
they're out of KPI. What do I do next? And I would look at their data down the right-hand side and I'd say, well, it's obvious. Go in, your conversion rate sucks. It's 7%. And they'd say, well, what should it be? And I'd say, well, it should be 25. Oh, okay, thanks. And I had that conversation about 100 times before I finally realized these people don't know what it's supposed to be.
That's right.
And so I took 2 weeks off and I built out every funnel possible with as many price points as I could think of. And I built out all these goal metric spreadsheets. And I came back and I said, here you go. And they said, this is literally the roadmap to gold.
Yeah.
This is the IP that's been sitting in your head for 3 years that you just decided not to share with us, apparently. And then you expected us to just know it. And so we didn't know where to focus. So not having a roadmap from the beginning makes it almost impossible to know where to focus next, which is why we teach everybody, do this first.
Yeah.
And then start to figure out what needs to, and then I would do exactly the same thing with my media buyers as I'm doing with you guys today, who's there. And it took me a while because they'd bring it up and they'd go, hey, we're off here. Like, what do you think we should do? And me my ego wanting to be like, well, it's obvious, it's right there. I would answer the question. But then I realized after a while, that's not helping them. And so they would bring it up and I'd say, where do you think the problem is? Just like I'm doing with you guys. And I'd make them think. And then now they don't ask me where the problem is. They already know where the problem is. And they already go and work on it. And they say, here's where the problem is. Here's what we're testing. Here's our plan for this week. Do you agree? And I go, yep, done. Right.
That's right. And in fact, to extend that, Aaron, what we did is we implemented for 2 straight years what we called the green zone calls. We would take a client that was out of KPI. We would have every single account manager, strategist, tech person, copywriter on the call. It would last an hour to an hour and a half. And we would tear this thing, we would tear the funnel apart. And we would ask our team members, just like we're asking you, what would you do next? What is the hinge that is going to move the overall result in the direction that the client wants and needs? And we did that for 2 straight years until they got it. Now it's turned into a straightforward SOP with weekly updates and prioritization and focus on what needs to change.
Well, and sorry, go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
No. I was just going to say that's really why your internal client, your boss, your client is going to retain your ability to grow for longer. And of course, that means more, in your case, it means more profit into your agency.
Yeah, absolutely. Because most of the guys and girls over here don't know that I've been working with both of you for the last 2 months or so.
Yeah.
And this has completely changed the way we manage our Google ads. It's so simple and so effective. So truly appreciate it. And thank you so much for this.
Oh, you're welcome, Uzair. And you brought up an important point. I don't know if it was Uzair or Andy, right?
Mm-hmm.
If once you get enough experience with this and you're running enough traffic, we've given you models, but you'll start to beat our models in certain places and you'll know the elements that made you beat the metrics, right? And you'll start to implement them everywhere in what you're doing and you'll set your own new goal metric baselines, right? Once you've got those, whether you use ours or you create your own, then you can actually go to the client when they come on board, which I do with every client. And I say, okay, here's the channel that you're going to be in. Here's your type of funnel. Here's your product price. These are your goal metrics. If we hit all of these goal metrics, here's what your projected ROAS is going to be. And there's many cases where their product price or their channel or their model won't make it profitable. It can't be profitable. And so then they say, oh, I want to bring you on as a client and I want you to sell this XYZ widget for $17 and I have no upsells and no downsells and no this and no that and whatever. Can I hire you? And you just plug in all the numbers and you show them you can't be profitable.
That's right.
I was having the same conversation with a client. They're selling a ton of their products on Amazon for $20. Or I want to bring it on our website. And we
Right.
did this exercise. And he was like, he sat back in his chair. Oh my God, you saved me a lot of money and time. I said, yes, this $20 product never be profitable on Google Ads. Maybe Facebook, you can try, but
Yeah.
the numbers don't add up.
Exactly. And you don't fudge the numbers
Yeah.
to try and make it work. It doesn't work. It's just a fact. And so then you either don't take the client or you say, look, if you want to be on this channel, here's what you're looking at. It's going to be a loss leader for you to get more attention, where maybe now more people will go to Amazon, or it builds your brand awareness for exit. But Mr. Prospect, I'm not going to be able to sell this for any less than $35. You're going to take a $15 loss across the board. That's when everything's perfect. Is that a worthy business decision for you? No? Okay. Don't do it. Right? You don't take the money and fudge the numbers,
That's right.
because then you're going to get killed by the client always expecting you to reach something that's unreachable. You're going to ruin your reputation. Your team's going to get burnt out. You're going to lose your bandwidth. You're going to waste your time.
That's right.
Right? So there are cases where we do this, and I bring the client in and I say, well, with what you currently have, here's what you're going to pay and here's what your loss is going to be. But if you added in this and this and this, maybe it's 2 upsells, 2 downsells, and a follow-up email nurture series or whatever, then we could get it to here. I'm not taking you on as a client unless you're willing to go put all of those things in play in the first 30 days.
Yeah.
Right? And they say, oh, well, I'm not willing to do that. Okay, bye. Right? Or they say, I'm willing to do that. Okay, I'm going to hold you accountable to doing that because we will not be profitable without it. Or you've got to raise your price, or this, or you've got to get better sales closers because they're closing at 4%. We're not going to make money. Your salespeople suck. They need to close at 20%. Get new salespeople. Right? Like one of my favorite quotes of all time, and I use it all the time with my clients, is math is not an opinion.
That's right.
You have an opinion. This is math. Math is not an opinion.
That's right.
Love it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in fact, we'll be talking about that next week in next Tuesday session, the bonus session, about how you overcome those problems within your own business and or, your clients. Okay. About how you get to those big numbers and how you can make everything in your model work for them in a sensible way. Okay.
So Nicholas has a question here. Do you guys have clients that sell on Amazon that are trying to also increase their sales on their own site? What are some big business decisions topics you guys go over at first? Example, Brands OK with sales going to Amazon. So I have one of the biggest Amazon agencies, is a really good friend of mine. And what he does is he builds the client up on Amazon to whatever, $1 million a year, whatever the number is on Amazon, which, as you guys know, Amazon's essentially free, right? You just have to know how to play the game. So there's no, unless you're doing pay-per-click on it, which is fine. But he won't bring them to me till they're doing at least $1 million a year. And he'll tell them, hey, you can exit this business on Amazon for a 2 to 4 multiple. But if you expand the brand out into Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, even if you take a slight loss on our cost per acquisition, the valuation in the eyes of an investor goes up exponentially because we're multi-channeled. You'll get a 7 to 10 multiple on the business by going into those other channels. So let's do that, right? And they'll come to me and they'll say, well, here's my gross sales numbers on Amazon and my CPA. And I'll go, yeah, that's not happening. Here's what your real numbers are going to be over here. Here's the things you can do to increase your lifetime value. Do you want to do it? Yes or no? Yes, I want to do it. Okay, I'll take you on, right? Hopefully that answers your question.
Perfect. Okay, folks. Well, let's have a look at some testing now, a little bit more, because we're coming to the bottom of the hour already. I can't believe how much fun we're having. Talk about sandbox campaign. So once you've got, and this is when we start moving in a little bit into phase 3. Remember, the first 30 days or the 45 days, if you're running on YouTube, is your whole goal is to identify those small hinges which are going to move big doors. Okay. Once you've gone through that process, it's almost inevitable that you will start succeeding. Okay. Meaning that you will start getting meaningful results, hitting the CPAs you want to hit. Now comes the time when, in order for you to scale, and particularly so in Facebook, you are going to have to create what we call sandbox campaigns. So you're going to be essentially taking about 5 to 10% of your budgets. And what you guys need to do is go ahead and create 2 separate campaigns. One is focused around audience testing only, and a second campaign is focused around creative testing or ad testing. Okay, so I'm going to just show you what this really looks like. This is one of our live accounts. This is the audience sandbox testing, basically. So all we're doing here is taking our best, and this is important, our best performing ad, and we are literally putting 1 ad in each ad set. Okay, not 3. We're putting 1 ad into each ad set. And what you can see here is each ad set has a different targeting. So here we're going to go for people with a cold interest called credit cards. Another one, internet privacy, online shopping, clothing, engaged shoppers, frequent travelers. These folks are just all tests. And you can see that with the same creative, our best winning creative, that's the combination, obviously, of your image, your ad copy, your headline, your call to action, those 4 key elements. You're literally putting it into different interests. And as you can see, some are doing much better than others. You can see, like, the cost per lead on internet privacy is $9.66. Cost per lead is $9.33. So you can see already, just by, look at this one, frequent travelers, not working at all. Again, this is a test that is running for 1 full week. Will you be shutting some of these off beforehand? Yes, absolutely. Once you've gone through that 1.5 times KPI, which is this case, I took this snapshot the other day, but once you turn these off, then you know essentially that you spent more than enough to justify not continuing. Okay, so this is one single campaign where you're testing individual audiences. It might be a 4% lookalike of your website engagers. It might be a 6% of your video views. It doesn't matter. The fact is that you've just got to keep testing within your total overall budget of 5 to 10%. Let's have a look at the next one. Ad sandboxing. So ad sandboxing is just the reverse. You're literally taking your best performing audience and you're putting in your ads or your iteration of your ads, which might be images, it might be headline, it depending on where you are on the journey. But you can see literally in this example, it's the same audience. Okay, this is an ABO. For those of you who are curious, this is not a CBO campaign. This is an ad set budget setting. So we're putting just so much per day in each ad set, same audience, but with different creative within it. And you can see that the creative that is definitely working would be within this particular ad set. Now, I haven't got the campaign, I haven't got the actual creative up, but again, you've got the similar sort of behavior occurring where the cost per lead, even with a sub 1% CTR, is still performing. And that's well within our KPI, because in this particular case, the KPI is $20. But you can see that the first target to spend, this is definitely spent more than enough. You just simply would turn this one off. It's just the same optimization process, but within the sandbox environment, which is going to occupy 5 to 10% of your budget. Okay. And that is it. That is literally all you have to do on the sandboxing. You've got two separate campaigns, one to test your audiences and one to test your creative against your best audiences. Okay. And that is it. I've literally just arrived on time, 4 minutes late, but there we are. Not bad for today. Last
Not
week.
bad.
We made it on time this one. I will stop the sharing if I can figure out how to do that. Let me go. Stop sharing, get my camera back on. There we are. So with that said, any sort of final questions? I know we've gone through a lot today. But I think this interactivity has proved very helpful, as opposed to sort of blasting you with PowerPoints, which is what most training is trying to do. We want to make it interactive as possible. So what I will do is, I'm about 50% way through the presentation for Thursday, so I will update it with more juicy case studies where you have to choose option A, B, or C, or D, or any of those combinations.
You should gamify it. Whoever gets the wrong answer, kick them off and see who's the last man standing.
Yeah.
The gauntlet. I love it.
Absolutely.
Squid Games?
We're
What,
gonna-
Squid Game? Squid Game?
Oh, Squid Game. Oh, that's a
Squid
bit rough, isn't it, Lauren?
And I am a man of my word, Andy. When you put up the Fight Club picture, I jokingly said,
That's right.
where'd you find that picture of me? For those of you who don't know, I used to be an MMA competitor trying to get into the UFC. So I am a man of my word. I will share. These are
There it is.
pictures of, look at all those abs. I think, man,
Yes.
crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, there I was convinced I was going to be the next UFC champion, and clearly I'm not. So it didn't work out, but they were good times. So I'm a man of my word. There you go.
You kept your promise.
That's why your clients don't mess with you, Aaron.
Well, people, Andy will joke. My clients call me the nicest asshole they've ever met. I am very definitive on what we're doing and why, and I don't let my clients dictate what we're doing very often, but for good reason, because I care about their results and I don't want them to be driving the train. I want them to do the things that are going to get them the results. And then I often communicate that to them.
That's right. Yeah, we all do. It's always, as Aaron said, the math doesn't lie, but it also requires looking a little bit within the context of the KPIs. One thing is to see the cold numbers. The other aspect is to try and figure out, that's why it's not at the end, you will always succeed. I mentioned this in the Slack channel. You do have to be patient. You do have to have the mindset that we talked about right at the beginning of the presentation. But if you go through this very systematically, then there's absolutely no reason why you cannot succeed. It's that simple.
And here's the thing, you have to have thick skin. Right? You have to be opinionated. You have to have thick skin. You got to be back up what you say. And even still, at the end of the day, it doesn't always work out. It doesn't always work out because it's the wrong offer, the wrong audience match, or things come at you that you have no idea. I'll give you an example. While we were on this call, I got a Slack message. We have a client that we have taken from 400,000 a month to 800,000 a month this year. And they were doing 3 live webinars a week. And we've got them off of live webinars, which they hated. And it's completely VSL driven right now. And we've met with them every single day and done about 1,000 different creatives.
Yeah.
And they just let us know they're bringing a media buyer in-house and replacing us next month and thanked us for all our hard work. And my brain goes,
yeah,
like, why?
Yeah.
Right. You gotta have thick skin in this world and realize you're here to get a result. It's not family. It's not personal.
That's right.
Stuff happens. You just keep learning and rolling and learning and rolling. And you expect the best. This is one of my other favorite quotes. Expect the best, be emotionally attached to nothing. Expect the best, be emotionally attached to nothing. Because a situation like that, you know, all that work, all that big retainer, what do you mean you're firing me? That could tank you for the month emotionally if you let it. For me, I'm like, great, glad we could serve you. Who's next? Come on in. We got a spot. Let's go.
And then when they come back, because it maybe didn't work, when they come back, then you're the hero again.
Well, and that's the other thing, right? There's little nuggets that we've dropped today that you should remember. I never go out badly with a client. Even when I should tell the client that they're a complete moron, I don't. Because you never know. We've had clients come back, fire us, like this one just did, because technically we just got fired, right? Even though we're killing the results for them, we just got fired, right? We go out, well, thank you so much. How can I help you offboard? How can I help you train up your new team so they understand everything that we did? Let us know if you need anything else in the future. We've had clients come back 3-4 times because in their mind, they're like, oh, you know, I'm going to justify it for this reason, or maybe I want to build an in-house team, or maybe it'll be more valuable if they're in-house, or maybe if I'm hammering on somebody 24 hours a day sitting at a desk. And then they realize, oh, wow, it's not as easy as you think. Right. And then they come back and I go, welcome back. And somebody said, and then you charge more. Well, usually by the time they've come back, I am charging more and they don't get their original deal. Right. Gotcha. So I always do my best to usher them out with as much positivity as possible, leave the door open, let them know to contact me when they need anything. We got people come back all the time. Right. Oh, yeah. So it is what it is.
Yeah. And we've had many situations where folks take it in-house and then it blows up and then they come back. Because they just don't have the processes that we've developed for them. And of course, we've got, 50, 100 clients worth of data, which we actually get from our analytics team. So we know what's going on in the marketplace all the time. So we've got a tremendous amount of data that, not that we're keeping sort of any private or anything, it's just all aggregated data that we look at. But
Victoria asked a great question. She said, give me a reason why people say they want to take it in-house. We're still trying to kind of figure this one out, but here's some of the reasons that we've heard. We've got a huge community of guys who've gone through our program and they're super passionate about what they do. And they've had agencies before as well. And they just want to help us with our mission. And they're so passionate about it that we think that'll carry over into what we're doing. Okay. We've had, one client we took from 100,000 a month to 4 million a month. And he said, eventually we want to exit and we feel like we've got to have everybody under our corporate infrastructure, following our SOPs and our hierarchies and everything else. So with the valuations higher. Okay. I have no idea what the reason is for this one today. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm trying to think of some other ones that were people have said, I'm going to take it. Oh, we've merged our one company with another company and they already have a media buying team. So
yes. Yeah.
We're going to leverage them in it. At the end of the day, we're still a service business. And even though it blows my mind that we could have such remarkable results for somebody and they forget so quickly, that's just part of the game that you're buying into, right?
Yeah.
Is you're a weapon for now. You do the best that you can. You maintain a great reputation in the marketplace. And when you do this well, you have the most valuable skill maybe on the planet, right? There's no business that I've ever met in my entire life where I've said, I make it rain. I make more leads and sales than you can handle. That doesn't go, can we talk about that? I can pick clients off a tree if I feel like it because of the skill that you are learning. So there's a multitude of different reasons. Just why you just don't get emotionally attached to it.
Yeah, and Lauren, you asked a good question. We don't own any ad accounts at all. We don't own any assets of any client at all. It's theirs. There are agencies or service providers that will say, look, I'll get you the leads, and they're sort of like, cost per lead type or paper lead type agencies. That's a valid model, but it's not one we've chosen.
That's another really valid point that we didn't cover inside of this cohort. If you're going to be a service provider / run an agency, then this sort of speaks to you. I would highly recommend that you never own anything that the client owns for two core reasons. If we look at Facebook and Instagram as an example, we get added as a partner to every business manager and ad account. Why do we get added as a partner? Because if they do something wrong that gets them shut down, it doesn't taint all of the other accounts that we're working on. If we're added as an admin on the business manager or the ad account and they do something wrong, it will crash all of our other ad accounts. So we are always added as a partner, and we can either remove ourselves as a partner or they can remove us as a partner. So we never have ourselves on anybody's admin ever. There are clients, or there are agencies out there and media buyers out there that will say, well, I'm going to set up my own BM and my own ad account because if the client doesn't pay me, I want to be able to shut them off. You don't want that. You don't want it. It's so much drama. And then you start getting into fights about ownership of assets and everything else, and lawsuits and reputational damage and exposure from a compliance standpoint by having, everything in one bucket. I mean, we had a client that was supposed to come on 3 months ago that services, I think he actually services agencies. And he had 50 clients, and every single client was in his business manager and his ad account, and he got hacked. Somebody in his organization didn't have 2-factor authentication on. They got hacked. 50 retainers gone in 1 minute, never to be recovered. Hacks, you very rarely get hacks back. If he had simply got them all set up, their business managers and their ad accounts, and then he had become a partner in all 50, if he got hacked, he'd say, hey guys, sorry, I need a day time out. He'd go set up a new business manager. He'd set up a new ad account. He'd add himself as a partner back to all their things, back in business. He's dead. $300,000 a month in retainers. He's dead. The business is toast.
That's right.
Right. So, these are little things that you learn along the way.
That's right. Yeah. Perfect.
How
This is
about the
good.
invoicing? Sorry, Cecilia.
No, go ahead.
Invoicing and the payments, do you charge their card on every 30 days or?
I mean, these are the different things that I've tested and have worked well. Number one, we charge on day one, right? We don't charge based on work after the fact. We charge day one. I started off using credit cards because I don't like chasing people for money until my processing fees were north of $200,000 a year. And I was like, oh man, that's a lot of free money I'm giving away. So then what we actually did is we pivoted to direct deposit in the agreement. And after 7 days, if they haven't paid us, we have their credit card on file and we charge them what they're owed. And we add a 3% processing fee on top. So if you want to pay us on time, great. There's the ACH. If you want to screw around, no problem. We're going to hit your credit card and we're going to charge you an extra 3%. And that has worked phenomenally well. So we do payment every 30 days. And when I first started, I was month to month. And the bigger that we've become, and the more established that we've become, the longer I've made my initial contract, because it allows me to attract a better client. So I think right now we're currently sitting at a 5-month
5 months.
engagement, and then it's month to month after that. But I may move it to 6 in the near future. As you get bigger and you get more established, you charge more, you extend out your commitment. Better clients don't care, but you got to obviously earn your way there over time.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Perfect.
Yeah. Wow, this has been so much more than just the meeting buying part of it. I love today's session. I think it was great. So
Cool.
if anyone has any other questions or things to follow up, we can always go to the Slack channel where Andy and Aaron are both participating all the time, which is wonderful. And we're going to have this recording available so you can go back and do these over and over again. Maybe you can change your answers. I don't know. See how it goes. But we're going to be back here on Thursday again, looking for more of these examples and things to do. And it's been great. I'm so happy that everyone joined us today, and we'll see you on Thursday.
Awesome. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thanks a lot,
Take care.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.